Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. External Affairs Minister of India Dr. S. Jaishankar says changing world order would be based on multi-alignment and policies, preferences and interests of countries. US House of Representatives fails to elect its speaker, first time in 100 years. Myanmar's military government to release 7,012 prisoners under an amnesty to mark the country's Independence Day. In Canada, a 2-year ban on foreigners buying homes comes into effect. World's longest river cruise MV Ganga to go on voyage from Varanasi on River Ganga to Dibrugarh on River Brahmaputra on the 10th of January. And in cricket, India take on Sri Lanka in the second T20 match at Pune on Thursday. And now the news in detail. External Affairs Minister of India Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that the world order needs to be replaced by a world of multi-alignment. In an interview with the Austrian publication Der Presse, the External Affairs Minister said, in this framework, the countries will choose their own particular policies, preferences and interests. Citing an example of India, Dr. Jaishankar said New Delhi rejected the pressures to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine and at the same time turned Moscow as its largest oil supplier. Dr. Jaishankar further reiterated that India is in no mood to cut ties with Russia, adding that Moscow supported New Delhi with weapons over decades of non-alignment, while the US cosseted India's arch-enemy, Pakistan. Speaking about the conflict in Ukraine and echoing Prime Minister Modi's words that today's era is not of war, Dr. Jaishankar called for both the countries to resolve their differences at the negotiation table through dialogue and diplomacy. The External Affairs Minister advised the European countries on the New World Order, the Ukraine war, and the Chinese challenge, and apprised that they need a wake-up call to understand the shaking up of international order. He said Europeans needed a wake-up call to understand that the difficult aspects of life are not always taken care of by others, adding, no region will be stable if dominated by a single power. The External Affairs Minister concluded his 6-day visit to Cyprus and Austria on Tuesday. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary on Prime Minister calls for scientific approach in nation building.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the 108th Indian Science Congress ISC at Nagpur via video conferencing on Tuesday. The focal theme of this year's ISC is Science and Technology for Sustainable Development with Women Empowerment. The 5-day-long ISC will witness discussions on issues of sustainable development, women empowerment and the role of science and technology in achieving this. Prime Minister highlighted the role of India's scientific strength and India's story of development over the next 25 years. When the spirit of national service gets infused in science along with passion, results are unprecedented. Mr. Modi expressed confidence that India's scientific community will ensure a place for her country, which it rightly deserves. Pointing out that observation is the root of science, and it is by such observation that scientists follow patterns and arrive at required results, the Prime Minister mentioned the importance of gathering data and analyzing results. He highlighted the abundant availability of data and technology in the 21st century India and said that it has the potential to take Indian science to new heights. Be it traditional knowledge or modern technology, each one plays a crucial role in scientific discovery, the Prime Minister remarked. Mr. Modi also emphasized the need to strengthen the scientific processes by applying various techniques of research-led development. The Prime Minister said that India is being counted among the top scientific countries of the world as India moved to 40th place in the Global Innovation Index in 2022 from 81st place in 2015. India is among the top 3 nations in the world in terms of the number of PhDs awarded and the startup ecosystem. Expressing happiness about the theme of the Science Congress this year, which combines sustainable development with women empowerment, the Prime Minister emphasized the complementarity between the two areas. However, he stressed, and I quote, "Our thinking is not just that we should empower women via science, but also empowering science by the contribution of women," unquote. India has been enshrined the opportunity to preside over G20. The Prime Minister pointed out that women-led development is one of the high priority subjects taken by the G20 chair. He informed that in the last 8 years, India has taken up extraordinary tasks ranging from governance to society to economy, which is being discussed all over the world today. Highlighting women who showcase their strength to the world, be it in a partnership in small industries and businesses or leadership in the startup world, the Prime Minister gave the example of Mudra Yojana, which has been instrumental in empowering women of India. He also pointed out the doubling of women's participation in the field of extramural research and development. The increasing participation of women is proof that women and science are both progressing in the nation, Mr. Modi said. Talking about the scientists' challenge of turning knowledge into actionable and helpful products, the Prime Minister said efforts of science can turn into great achievements only when they come out of the lab and reach the land, and the impact reaches from global to grassroots. When its ambit is from journal to zameen, that is land, and when change is visible from research to real life. In order to help such youth, the Prime Minister emphasized the need for an institutional framework. He called upon the gathering to work on developing such an enabling institutional framework. He gave examples of talent hunt and hackathons through which children with scientific temper could be discovered. The Prime Minister talked about India's stride in the field of sports and attributed the success to the emerging robust institutional mechanism and the Guru Shishya Parampara, that is, teacher-student tradition. The Prime Minister suggested that this tradition can be the mantra of success in the field of science. Pointing out issues that will pave the way for the development of science in the nation, the Prime Minister remarked that fulfilling India's requirements should be the root of all inspiration for the entire scientific community. Science in India should make the country Atmanirbhar, the Prime Minister remarked, as he noted that 17 to 18% of the human population resides in India, and such scientific developments should benefit the entire population. He emphasized the need to work on subjects that are of importance to the entire humanity. To address the growing energy needs of the country, the Prime Minister informed that India is working on a national hydrogen mission and stressed the need to manufacture critical equipment like electrolyzers in India to make it a success.
In some more news, in U.S. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy failed to secure enough votes to be elected as the Speaker of the House of Representatives in a third round of voting. It was the first time in a century that neither a Republican nor a Democrat won the Speaker's seat. The House adjourned without a Speaker, first time since 1923. The first round of voting saw at least 19 defections from McCarthy's own party when he could only afford to lose 4 seats. In the second and third rounds of voting, he failed to secure enough votes from fellow Republicans for securing the Speaker's post. McCarthy needs at least 218 votes to formally become the Speaker of the House, which has 435 members. Retail pharmacies in the U.S. will be permitted to sell abortion pills, said health officials on Tuesday, a move that could significantly expand access to the procedure after last year's landmark Supreme Court ruling that overturned federal abortion rights. Regulatory changes announced by the Food and Drug Administration mean that mifepristone, which is the first of 2 drugs used to terminate a pregnancy, will be available in local drug stores in states where abortion is permitted. A doctor's prescription will be needed to obtain the pills, which were previously only available from a few mail-order pharmacies or certified doctors and clinics. Demand for abortion pills has risen since the conservative-dominated Supreme Court made a landmark ruling last June that overturned Roe v. Wade, a 1973 case that had guaranteed women's right to an abortion for half a century. Pharmacies will need to receive certification to dispense the drug, while patients will need to complete a consent form. The FDA's decision was welcomed by the American Civil Liberties Union. United States Embassy in Cuba is reopening visa and consular services Wednesday. the first time it has done so since a spate of unexplained health incidents among diplomatic staff in 2017 slashed the American presence in Havana. The embassy confirmed this week it will begin processing immigrant visas with a priority placed on permits to reunite Cubans with family in the US and others like the diversity visa lottery. The resumption comes amid the greatest migratory flight from Cuba in decades, which has placed pressure on the Biden administration to open more legal pathways to Cubans and start a dialogue with the Cuban government despite a historically tense relationship. They are anticipated to give out at least 20,000 visas a year, though it's just a drop in the bucket of the migratory tide, which is fueled by intensifying economic and political crisis on the island. In late December, U.S. authorities reported stopping Cubans 34,675 times along the Mexico border in November, up 21% from 28,848 times in October. In Canada, a 2-year ban on foreigners buying homes has come into effect. In a statement, the Federal Housing Minister Ahmed Hussain said the ban is meant to discourage buyers from looking at homes as commodities instead of a place to live and grow a family. The ban prohibits people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents from buying residential properties and imposes a fine of 10,000 Canadian dollars on those who breach it. According to media reports, the ban aims to help ease one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the world. It said as of this summer, the average home price in Canada is $568,000, which is more than 11 times high comparatively the median household average income. Meanwhile, New Zealand also passed a similar legislation banning foreign home buyers in 2018 as the country grappled with its own housing affordability crisis. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. Welcome back. A new working group on disaster risk reduction has been established under India's G20 presidency. It aims to boost collective work, multidisciplinary research and exchange of best practices on disaster risk reduction among the G20 nations. Earlier, the historic city of Udaipur hosted the first G20 India meeting where 40+ Sherpas discussed some of the world's most pressing issues. Through cultural performances, art exhibitions and excursions, G20 delegates experienced some unique Indian moments. Indian Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur will visit Guwahati on Thursday to review the Y20 preparations by the Assam government. The Y20 is a leadership summit that convenes young professionals from G20 countries to develop policy solutions to current global challenges. This year's Y20 summit will take place in August 2023 in Varanasi, India, and the official organizing entity is Y20 India. Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry Dr. Tamilisai Soundararajan on Wednesday evening released posters and stickers on G20 logo in a function of branding of G20 logo organized by the State Information and Publicity Department at Puducherry. She complimented the Prime Minister for having divided the opportunity to hold several meetings by various states and UTs and for such an opportunity to hold an engagement meeting on science in Puducherry on the 31st of 2022. Shri N. Rangasamy, Chief Minister of Puducherry, switched on G20 LED logo in the function. The event was attended by ministers, Deputy Speaker and higher officials. Myanmar's military government will release 7,012 prisoners under an amnesty to mark the country's Independence Day. State broadcaster reported on Wednesday as the Janta chief praised some countries for maintaining support for his nation. The Southeast Asian country has faced international isolation and Western-led sanctions since the military seized power from a democratically elected government led by Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi nearly 2 years ago. Senior General Min Aung Hlaing said in a speech to mark Myanmar's 75th Independence Day that they want to thank some international and regional countries and organizations and individuals who positively cooperated with the country in the midst of all the pressure, criticisms and attacks. Myanmar has been in chaos since the army took power from Suu Kyi's government on the 1st of February 2021, detailing her and other officials and responding to pro-democracy protests and dissent with brutal force, displacing hundreds of thousands of people. Suu Kyi is being held in a jail in Nay Pyi Taw in solitary confinement and the military insists she has received due process by an independent court. Authorities typically release some prisoners to mark the day when Myanmar declared independence from the British rule. Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez has said he will seek the impeachment of the country's Supreme Court chief for repeatedly engaging in conduct that constitutes poor performance of his duties. Fernandez said on Tuesday that he has signed a request for the impeachment of Supreme Court President Horacio Rosati and several other court members, ramping up his fight with the nation's highest judicial body. Several provincial governors also signed the request. Fernandez's statement did not specify what conduct was the issue, but the move comes after the president clashed with the court over a December decision to allocate more state funds to the capital, Buenos Aires, which is led by right-wing opposition leader Horacio Rodriguez Larreta. The court ruled on 21st December that the portion of federal funding distributed to Buenos Aires should be increased from 1.4% to 2.95%, the level of funding it received prior to government cuts in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Sri Lankan cabinet has granted approval for the establishment of a parent company to initiate restructuring of state-owned enterprises or SOEs. Last year, Sri Lanka established a special unit under the Ministry of Finance with the specific task of restructuring SOEs. The unit was tasked with identifying methods for minimizing the financial burden shouldered by the Treasury as well as enhancing the total performance of public entrepreneurship. The Treasury will hold all equity in the company and the restructured SOEs will be made subsidiaries under it. In the general budget presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in November 2022, it was proposed to initiate necessary measures to restructure SOEs including Sri Lankan Airlines and Sri Lankan Telecom. Sri Lanka has been reeling under its worst ever economic crisis and forex shortages since its independence in 1948. The island nation finalized a staff-level agreement with the International Monetary Fund, under which an extended fund facility of $2.9 million could be obtained. Sri Lanka has initiated a slew of measures as part of its efforts in line with the IMF agreement. European Union health ministers have reached a consensus on how to handle travellers from China as the country is gripped by a surge of COVID-19 infections. After a meeting in Brussels on Tuesday, the European Commission said that the overwhelming majority of the 27 member states of the EU want passengers arriving from China to receive a systematic testing for COVID-19 prior to their arrival in the EU. The Commission said lack of transparency and incomplete data on infections has led to an overwhelming majority of EU countries in favor of pre-departure testing. A looted ancient Egyptian sarcophagus that was on display at a US museum has been returned to Egypt. The 2.9-meter-long green coffin dates back to the late dynastic period, which spanned 664 BC to 332 BC and belonged to a priest called Ankhenmat. It was looted from the Abu Sar necropolis in North Egypt by a global art trafficking network, which smuggled it through Germany into the US in 2008. A collector loaned it to the Houston Museum of Natural Science in 2013. The sarcophagus was repatriated after an investigation that lasted several years and was formally handed over by US diplomats at a ceremony in Cairo on Monday. The event was attended by Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and Tourism and Antiquities Minister Ahmed Issa. Mozambique replaced Kenya at the UN Security Council on Tuesday with a promise to prioritize the fight against terrorism. The country will serve at the council as a non-permanent member for the next 2 years. Mozambican ambassador to the UN, Pedro Comissario, said that his country is going to deal a lot with terrorism. Mozambique has been battling an Islamist insurgency in its northern Cabo Delgado province for the past 5 years. Conflict has displaced over 1 million people and killed around 4,000 others, according to official data. The Security Council has 5 permanent members: the US, Russia, France, the UK and China, and 10 non-permanent members. The last surviving astronaut from the first successful crewed space mission in NASA's Apollo program, Walter Cunningham, has died at the age of 90. NASA has confirmed Cunningham's demise. However, the cause of the death has not been confirmed. NASA's administrator Bill Nelson said Cunningham was an explorer whose work also laid the foundation for the agency's new Artemis moon program. Cunningham was one of the first 3 astronauts aboard the 1968 Apollo 7 mission, an 11-day space flight that beamed live television broadcasts as they orbited Earth, paving the way for the moon landing less than a year later. Temperatures for January have reached an all-time high in a number of nations across Europe. National records have fallen in 8 countries and regional records in another 3. Warsaw, Poland saw 18.9 degrees Celsius on Sunday, while Bilbao, Spain was 25.1 degrees Celsius, more than 10 degrees Celsius above average. The mild European weather comes as North America faces more severe storms days after a deadly winter cold snap left more than 60 dead. Heavy snow and freezing rain have been forecast for parts of the northern Midwest, while severe thunderstorms and tornadoes are expected in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. But on the European side of the Atlantic, the weather has been balmy for many places at the start of the year. Temperatures in the Netherlands, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Latvia, Czech Republic, Poland, Denmark and Belarus broke national records. The world's longest river cruise, MV Ganga, will originate from Varanasi on River Ganga and complete its journey at Dibrugarh on River Brahmaputra. It will cover a distance of 3,000 kilometers in 52 days. The cruise's length is 62 meters, width is 12 meters and has a draft of 1.4 meters. The cruise has been provided in 3 decks and 18 suites. The passengers will board at Varanasi on the 10th of January. All the 32 passengers are from Switzerland. The vessel will sail down from Varanasi on the 13th of January and shall reach Dibrugarh on the 1st of March 2023. It will stop at Patna, Kolkata, Dhubri, Guwahati and the Majuli Island. And now a report from the business desk.
The Sensex fell 637 points to settle at 60,657. The Nifty also slipped 190 points to finish at 18,043. Majority of the global shares today gained amid positive news about ease in inflation and China's strict anti-COVID measures. However, share markets remained range-bound as investors awaited minutes from the Federal Reserve's most recent meeting. Asian shares today ended mixed. Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained 3.2%, South Korea's Kospi rose 1.7%, and China's Shanghai Composite Index added 0.2%. On the other hand, Japan's Nikkei 225 declined 1.5% and Singapore's Straits Times Index closed 0.1% down. European shares were up in intraday trade. Back home at the multi-commodity exchange, gold futures for February were trading at 55,835 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures for March were trading at 70,200 rupees per kilogram when reports last came in. At the forex markets, the rupee appreciated 8 paise to close at 82 rupees and 81 paise against the American unit. V. Ravi Kumar for World News All India Radio.
In some more news, World Braille Day is being observed today. It is observed to raise awareness about the importance of Braille as a means of communication in the full realization of human rights for the visually impaired and partially sighted people. The day commemorates the birth anniversary of French educator Louis Braille, who invented the Braille language in the year 1809. The National Federation of the Blind today organized a program in New Delhi to mark the day. Talking to AIR News, General Secretary of the Federation, S.K. Rungta, highlighted the importance of the day in the life of the visually impaired. He said despite technological developments, Braille cannot be substituted. On to sports now. In cricket, the second T20 International of the 3-match series between India and Sri Lanka will be played in Pune on Thursday. It will start at 7 p.m. at Maharashtra Cricket Association Stadium. India won the first match by 2 runs in a nail-biting finish in Mumbai on Tuesday. Debutant bowler Shivam Mavi impressed by picking 4 wickets for just 22 runs in 4 overs. Deepak Hooda and Ishan Kishan were the top scorers in the Indian total of 162. In reply, visitors were restricted at 160 with superb bowling performances by Shivam, Imran Malik and Harshal Patel. The third match of the series will be played on Saturday in Rajkot. Indian table tennis star Manika Batra has reached her career-best 35th position in women's singles. She moved up 3 spots in the latest International Table Tennis Federation World Rankings. A report.
Manika Batra's rise comes on the back of an impressive outing at the Asian Cup in November, where she claimed a historic medal for India. She defeated the world number 6 Hina Hayata of Japan and world number 7 Chen Xingtang of China to win the bronze medal. Manika became the first Indian women table tennis player to medal at the continental event and only the second Indian to achieve the feat. Chetan Babur won a silver in 1997 and a bronze in 2000. The 27-year-old Manika Batra entered the top 50 in the TT World Rankings in February last year and remained in the 30s and 40s throughout the year. Apart from the Asian Cup high, Manika had a difficult season. She made the semi-final of just one event and the quarter-finals of 2 tournaments, including the Commonwealth Games 2022. Meanwhile, G. Sathiyan remained India's top-ranked men's singles table tennis player at world number 39, while national champion Sharat Kamal dropped 3 places to 47th. With Virendra Singh, this is Ajay Kumar for News Desk.
And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Straits Times writes, aid from 2 World Bank entities hit record $100 billion in 2022. The Guardian writes, record warm winter in parts of Europe forces closure of ski slopes. The Business Recorder reports, bankrupt Sri Lanka to hold first polls since crisis. Wall Street Journal writes, Elon Musk's Twitter says it plans to expand political ads allowed on platform. The Washington Post writes, restrictions on travelers from China mount as COVID numbers surge there. A quick look at the headlines once again. External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar says, changing world order would be based on multi-alignment and policies, preferences and interests of countries. U.S. House of Representatives fails to elect its speaker, first time in 100 years. Myanmar's military government to release 7,012 prisoners under an amnesty to mark the country's Independence Day. In Canada, a 2-year ban on foreigners buying homes comes into effect. World's longest river cruise, MV Ganga, to go on voyage from Varanasi on River Ganga to Dibrugarh on River Brahmaputra on the 10th of January. And in cricket, India take on Sri Lanka in the second T20 match at Pune on Thursday. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Myanmar. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.